Welcome to Community Conversations with Alex and Didine. And we thank you so much for, giving us your time and be with us today. So we appreciate you and everything you'll be bringing to this conversation.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you so much. I'm excited.
So for those who don't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Vileena. I am a business analyst for a digital bank, and I have studied statistics and a little bit of math,
Mhm.
but my interests probably align more along like fashion, art, movies, and other creative pursuits.
Mhm.
Yes.
I like clothes a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so do we. We love
Oh,
clothes too.
indeed. We love clothes.
Yes.
Yeah. So we met back in October.
Was
W-
it October?
I
It's
think it
already
was
been
October.
2 months. Yeah.
During the May Moon base range crossover event
Yes.
that we had the privilege of being a part of.
Yeah.
And so we met you there. We met
Yeah.
you there, and what a pleasant surprise to
Yes.
have make this connection.
Yes.
Um, essentially with a complete stranger.
Yeah.
But that connection. So I was in the back recording. I was doing the videography.
Yes.
But you and Dadine.
Yeah, I think I felt the connection with you.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the things we connected on, it's for me at least, is that I can be awkward and with a lot of people, I can feel like I'm not good. I'm not a social butterfly. So
Mhm.
and so sometimes in the in the place where there's a lot of people, I am by myself, or there's that one other person who I'm gonna speak to, and just focus and just have that focus on that one person that I feel comfortable with. And so
Yeah.
it happens to me a lot. And so and
Mhm.
when we were sitting there and just we were talking, and sometimes you meet, a really good person who um like a lot of the things we talked about as social consciousness, and I think that's something that in a lot of places we don't meet people who are that way and or feel connected to, in the sense that you kind of understand life similarly in a way, or see life in similarly. I don't know, because I don't even know your background. I don't even know, how you grew up and all the things that led you to become the person you are, or the way you look at life. But I felt that connection.
Yeah.
I was like, and then finding out about Best Range, like I didn't know that was your first time actually trying out Best Range clothes, even though you've been a fan of Best Range for a long time. And so that was like something nice and sweet to hear. Yeah, so that was pretty much our conversation. It was a lot. We
Mhm.
had a long conversation. It wasn't long, but we kind of connected in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like but I felt very comfortable around you. So like it felt like it was easy to talk to you because when I was near you, I was like, oh, like I feel comfortable.
I felt the
And
same way.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think the format of the event was also nice. Just the layout of the store is kind of
Hmm.
small and maybe less seating on the floor is really
Hmm.
nice too. You
Hmm.
feel more
Yeah.
relaxed, I think, when you're sitting on the floor. And
Yes.
I didn't know like that your name was Didine until you asked me to guess like you told me the dress was named after you and I was like, what? That dress for so long. I was like, oh, is this the person whose
Yeah,
name?
I remember Alex was teasing you. You didn't like that dress. And I knew what he was trying to do. It was like the didn't dress.
Yeah. It was good. It was good fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I just dropped by that event like randomly. I knew about Maymoon because of Garmentory, and they're like one
Mm,
of the boutiques on there. And I always
Mhm.
get their emails, and their models are really cool, and like
mm,
their stuff looks really good. It's hard
yes.
to get off their site.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes.
So I just walked into it going, oh yeah, they opened a store here. Like I haven't been there.
Yeah.
I thought they were in New York
Mhm.
only. So when I went to the event, it was kind of on a whim. I was actually supposed to go somewhere else, but I wanted to stop by the event because I think they said they had food too. And I was like,
Mm.
I have to go. And I went and I felt I didn't feel awkward. I just felt like, okay, I don't really know like where I am. It's
Yes.
an unfamiliar place. But I
Yes.
felt everybody was nice.
Yes.
And as the night went on, it just got more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How was your upbringing?
So I think, are you talking in general terms or is there a specific
You
like
know,
area?
just in general, the things that you remember from your childhood, the things that shaped you, like for who you are now,
Yeah.
our environment or the way, we grew up, sometimes almost the times it plays a big role on who we are as people.
Mm.
So how was yeah.
Mm, that's an interesting question. I feel like the way I was intended to grow up was just to be like a person with no specific interests or knowledge in anything, because then I could be asked to do different things and be of service to my family. Um, but I didn't like that idea, and I
Yeah.
always felt like rebelling against that concept.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to things in my childhood, I remember like the comforting things, like oh, like on Sunday mornings,
Yes.
I think my dad would play like Bob Marley and
Mhm.
work on a car or some American
Oh,
stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah.
yes.
And or like I know that my family, just being from like the family that I grew up with, at least
Yeah.
because I have like a chosen family now that I consider to be like
Yeah.
my actual family
Mhm.
because of
Yes.
that have happened.
Yes.
But like the family I grew up with, they were from India and they have a lot of like interest toward like textiles, because in India you have like
Yes.
villages where they have specific types of weaves. So
Yes.
just going off of that, if you like buy textile in India, you get it tailored to you and then you
Mm-hmm.
get like a custom made outfit.
Mm.
So because we had been to India so many times, like I remember like this fondness toward different fabrics and different like weaves and textures that we would look for in American stores too. So I'd like pretty much know what material something was just
Mhm.
by touching it
Yes.
or like interacting with it. And
Yeah.
that was something I remember from them because they would always like pay attention to that when we did go shopping.
Oh,
So that is something that I remember specifically,
yes.
um, as something like that shapes
Yeah.
me today.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That's very interesting because those are things we do, not realizing how impactful, it would be, especially like parents,
Yeah.
when you take your kids, like places like that and visit where they come from or and touch, go shopping, you don't realize how impactful that is.
Mhm.
That's yeah. Yeah, and textiles, how is it?
Textiles.
Textiles.
Yeah.
In Indian textiles are very, very famous to be really good and to be well thought out. Like I remember I was taking this meditation class, and for some reason the teacher had been in India many times, and one of the things he used to use to help us understand meditation, how the more you do it, the more impactful it is. It was about how when you're dyeing in India, when they're dyeing a fabric, how you put it in the dye and then you put in the sun and you put in the dye again, you put in the sun. So you do multiple times
Mhm.
until that fabric actually has that color that you want. And so, and that was one of that I remember vividly when you were mentioning that. That's what I remember, like just thinking. I was like, oh yeah, that's really true. You can't get the color you want unless
Mhm.
you repeat the thing over and over. And
Yeah.
I and I think I had that connection with some for some reason with India having the best fabrics. I don't know why, but I from that just a meditation class. And so when you mentioned that, I was like, huh, that's real, because I wouldn't know, because I've been there. I wouldn't touch a fabric and know, like
No. Mm-mm.
like the way you just mentioned. That's like a skill you learned very young, not knowing it was.
Yeah. So I think for me, I can do general materials, maybe not leather as much because I'm not the leather expert and I don't wear a lot of leather.
Yeah.
My, um, this is not the mom I grew up with, but she's my mom. So like I got my leather fascination from her. So if I buy, it's usually vintage and she can tell like different types of leathers and
Um,
such because she's more like attuned to that material. But
Yeah.
for me, I couldn't tell like different villages did do different work. I wouldn't be able to differentiate that. I know like some
mm,
basics,
mhm,
but there's a connection between like what you said with dyeing your fabrics because I think like it requires a lot of patience
mm,
and it's a natural process, so it's never going to be like the same thing every
Mhm.
time. It's going to be something different,
Yeah.
or something might go wrong, and you might have to like fix it, or
yes.
just a natural variation.
Mhm,
Um, so when you said that, it reminds me of like there's actually a link between the clothing as a symbol of India in general, because when colonialism occurred, India already had a very sophisticated, each village had its own sophisticated method of creating clothes for the local community. And that was what was systematically destroyed by colonialism because in the end, what they did was they just had cotton farmers grow cotton, ship the cotton to
Europe.
wherever,
Mm,
yeah, Europe, wherever else they were doing trade with, and then have the final material, the final product be made and then sold back here or
Mhm.
back in India. So they're like natural systems of preserving the textiles, like training workers and all of that ecosystem kind of got demolished. And that was one of the biggest symbols of independence as well, because
mm,
Gandhi was like, I'm going to make my own clothes
Mhm.
because textiles were so interwoven with like India to the
mm.
point where it became part of the independence movement. And so that's why he made his own clothes. So one of those images you see of him is like him near the, what do you call it? The weaver, the,
The
the, the thing that makes the,
yeah.
Oh, yes,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
so
Yes.
he's like that. There's a picture of him, like, I think working that because that
Um,
was his way of rebelling against, not rebelling, but like resisting
yeah.
the
Yeah.
forces, the
That's
economic.
so fascinating. I had no idea. I had no idea how sort of linked clothing was within the not only the culture but the history of
Yeah.
India.
Yeah.
I guess I'm as far as what you learn in public school.
Yeah.
Um, but as you say that, it kind of reminds me as conversations that Dean and I have had
Yeah.
with the production team in
Yeah.
Base Range.
Yeah.
Um, and a point that they would make in terms of the production, like from where the clothes start to where it ends
Yeah.
in our hands,
Yeah.
right?
As a
Just the
consumer.
as
Yeah.
the consumer,
From the farmer to the consumer.
right? And
Yeah.
so the point that they made is that there are so many hands that are exchanged in the
Mm.
whole process. And you're mentioning dyeing,
Yeah.
20 hands at minimum can be used for one garment, for
Yeah.
one t-shirt.
Yeah.
And there is a sense of interconnectedness
Yeah.
with that. And I think it adds more value, and it adds more context for what you're wearing,
Mhm.
and the people involved
Yeah.
that had a role to play in the ultimate
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, as you're speaking
Yeah.
about Gandhi and about India, it just kind of brings me back to those conversations a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think people forget that clothing is made by other people by hands.
Mhm.
Um, in today's world, it's really interesting because there is no like clothes making machine. They have to be sewn together by people
Yeah.
Mhm.
just to assemble the garment. But people don't realize that there's a feeling, like it's not even a thought, it's like a
No.
feeling like, okay,
Yeah.
these clothes are just like manufactured, they just like
Yeah.
appear out of thin air, but they actually do come from a farm, they come from the earth,
Mhm.
whether it's like polyester oil or
Yeah.
like cotton. So it's like grocery stores, like people don't realize that our food comes from the earth.
Mhm.
But in people's minds, it comes from a grocery store, it comes from the mall, it comes from a shop.
No, I mean, I remember we had some students exchange from I think Canada and the US. And I remember them so excited to see like an avocado tree and a mango tree, and they just like amazed. And I'm like, how special is, I didn't understand how special that was for them. And they were, a banana tree, like they were just like, oh my God, can I touch it? And it's like, so it was just like all the food they have ever had, and now they're like seeing them plant on in earth,
Yeah.
yeah,
They're seeing like the source of
the
it.
source of it. And
Right.
were just almost like, I don't know, like something very special that they saw. And for me, I did not appreciate it because as much as they did, because I just grew up that way. And so now that I've been in the US for 10 years, I'm realizing, as you're even, speaking on it, I'm realizing how, especially with clothing, with food, I understand it, but I can't. It's so hard to take that away from my heart, I guess, because that's how I grew up.
Mm.
But with clothing, I don't. We weren't a big in making our own clothes. A lot of it came from different countries, and so there was this disconnection on how a piece that you're wearing is has impacted so many families.
Mm.
And so, and for that matter, it should be respected, it should be taken care of. And so sometimes with the fast, how do you call it, fast fashion,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have that piece of clothing for over 4 years, and the person who touched it, or the family, it's almost like the energy just were just for nothing in a way that you start thinking of these things this way. And I don't know, it makes a big impact on how you move through the world, how the things that we touch, and it knowing that it touched other people's lives. And so you're kind of lucky to be able to touch it as well. You're kind of taking on all those energies of the people that touched it. So I'm like, I don't know, I'm rambling, but
Oh, I totally agree. And that reminds me of memories that I had when I was a kid. My parents saved all of their clothes
oh,
that like they had bought that were of good quality because I don't know how often they went shopping before I was born or when I was younger.
mm.
Like I don't know if it was above average, average, definitely was not below average. They had like all their clothes, and I would go in and find their old clothes that they don't wear, and like I would wear them, or I would like play with them, or
Yeah.
I would just see clothing that was made. It wasn't exactly vintage. It wasn't that old that you could say, oh, like, it's from the 1930s.
Mm.
But I would see it and I'd be like, oh, yeah, this is like old stuff. It's like cool. I'm like touching it and
Yes.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
this is what this garment's like. It's like a piece of history.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you just kind of unlocked a memory of mine as well. I have an older brother, whose clothes I probably scavenged, I like to say. Maybe like 30, 35% of his wardrobe growing
Yeah.
up. Just, because I was smaller than him.
Were
But
you
there
the
was,
younger one?
huh?
You were the younger
Yeah,
one?
right. I was the younger one. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are scavengers.
Yeah, definitely. But there was something like there was some value added when it was your older brothers or it was your parents, and there's something, there's like an energy within those clothes.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know if it's the same type of thing that you would get if you just picked it up off the rack or from a store, but when it's
Yeah.
handed down to you and it is of
Yeah.
good quality
Yeah.
and something that you place value in, it means so much more to you as
Yeah.
a kid.
Yeah.
For me as a kid, I should say,
Yes.
far more than I think I would appreciate. I would find appreciation now
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah.
But there's something very special about it, and
About scavenging.
well, no, not about that scavenging, but just about having something um that had a previous owner. Like I love thrift
Yeah.
stores now.
Yes.
Dean had put me on to thrift
Yes.
stores.
I'm a thrift store girl.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
there's
Me
some
too.
great items, great pieces you could find in thrift stores,
Yeah.
but there's history in it.
Yes.
Like, and that's, I think, one of the things I really enjoy about it is that you can find stories
Yes.
within
Yes.
all of these clothes. from previous owners and the way it was made and
Yes.
so on and so forth. So, and
What-
this is actually the first time I think I've articulated this thought probably in my life. I'm really happy you just mentioned that. So I'm kind of processing it as I'm speaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I had these memories. I just haven't talked to people about them as much, unless, okay, my mom and I love clothes too. So that's an interesting thing. Like my mom growing up, she loved clothes, and my mom right now also loves clothes. It's just like a thread that
Aw.
carries.
Yes, yes. Or maybe you, because your mom now, you chose your mom now, so you were like, you have to love clothes. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. That's clearly the only reason. No, but it's funny because like that is something I've always thought about, like going, okay, that's an interesting coincidence. Like that's the thing they
Yes.
would have in common with me. But so like we would go shopping and look at stuff together and talk about outfits. And so growing up, I wasn't allowed to like wear what I wanted to wear. I was just bought clothes and I had to wear them. Otherwise, I was ungrateful because I didn't really have like a style. And then it was like, oh, we bought you this great, amazing quality thing. You must wear it, even though it is literally a pair of pants made out of towel terry material. You will get made fun of if you go to school, but we don't care. We bought it for you, so you must
Yes.
wear it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Oh.
So they would buy good quality stuff, but it never matched me or wouldn't even fit me sometimes because they'd be like, okay, you're gonna wear this medium size because you're gonna grow into it one day.
Oh my
Yep.
God.
Yep.
That's every African parent. If you speak, I like. We grew up in the uniforms. Sorry to cut you off, but it's like you just triggered. You
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that's a trigger for me. Our uniform. So we wore uniforms to school, and when you started, I think primary school, you were 6 years old, and you're going to be in this primary school for 6 years. So parents, when they went to buy you uniform, they will be thinking about how long you're gonna be in that 6 years. I'd be like,
Yeah.
so next year she's gonna be taller than now. So not in the following year. So they'll buy you thing that have like it's supposed to be your arm is supposed to be here, but they're here and they're this size. So it's like oh, you're so
So
big.
it just like drapes over you.
And you just like cry because everyone at school would be like, why are you wearing, that's such a you're like in the bag, you're like sitting in the bag, like a huge bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I remember like every parent would tell you exactly the same line. You're gonna grow into it. It's almost like they talked about it.
It's like they don't figure out at some point you actually stop growing.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But meanwhile, you're gonna grow into this dress. Yeah, but
Exactly.
but that's funny. That's
Mm.
that your parents told you the same thing.
No, they did, and like they did it for a long time, and the shirts wouldn't be that awkwardly like if it was baggy, I think at least I could have spun it into like, yeah, this is baggy, and my style is just gonna be really baggy because
Yeah.
it was the 2000s. You could have worn really
Yeah,
baggy
yeah,
clothes.
yeah, yeah.
Sure.
No, it wasn't that baggy. It was just big enough to not fit and small enough to not even look
To not
baggy.
look
So
cool.
it
Just
just
like
didn't
awkward in
look good at
between.
all. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
People are like, so what are you going for?
one thing my parents both had in common, the ones I grew up with when they met, was they both disliked jeans. So they hated buying me jeans and they would buy me pants, but some of them would be like slacks, like literal professional slacks. So I'd be like wearing oversized slacks that weren't cool. They were just awkwardly shaped. And I'd just be
Yep.
sitting there with like a button up and slacks going like, I don't feel like I should be dressed this way. Some of my clothing was trendy. That's the thing. I had
Yes.
good, but like many of my outfits would be this, and I'd be like, okay. And I wasn't allowed to wear shorts. I wasn't allowed to wear like anything above my
Your
knee.
knees. Oh yeah.
Or like not above my knee was okay, but like anything above that was too short. So what happened was I just started like wearing whatever I wanted in college, being like, yeah, I can now wear whatever I want and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So I just bought everything that I could
All
that
the
I couldn't
jeans.
wear before, all the jeans, all the short skirts and dresses. And then I realized I didn't really have a style. This was kind of around the pandemic where I was like, these clothes, they're here. A lot of them were thrifted at the time. Like I did a lot of thread up. I don't know if you've heard of thread up.
No, I'm not
No,
familiar with.
no, I'm not familiar.
It's an online thrift store, and the cool thing is they let you return stuff as much as you want. So I'd get like a
Mhm.
box and I like returned the things that didn't work out and then
Uh,
exchange it. And then, like, so my friends had this running joke like, oh, Valina and her thread up boxes. We're just gonna keep getting clothes and returning them.
Mhm.
But I got stuff because it was cool. It was like a good brand name or like the quality was good, but I didn't actually think about whether it was me.
mm,
And so then I had a bunch of clothes that I was like, why do I hate these eggplant colored sweatpants that, you know, I've been wearing for a long time, but every time I see them, I hate them. And I'm like, oh, because the color is just not good and doesn't match me at all. So I did like a lot of searching then, and that's when I found Base Range. It was through a sustainable
mm,
YouTuber. But
Mhm.
also what helped was my mom and I going shopping together and talking about clothes. And also like she had a like developed sense of style, even though if it was rotating, she knew like the different patterns, colors,
yeah.
and shapes she liked. So that
Mhm.
helped me figure out what I liked.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, see, that's something I'm working on finding my own, because I change over time.
Mm.
There was a time I was like a 60s girl. Like, you will see me, you will be like, you will think that I just came, I don't know, like I went through a time
Time,
travel
yeah. Hmm.
thing, but I'm
Mhm.
from the 60s. And so it
They weren't
changed.
bad. I like the style from them. It's very bold.
Yeah, it was very, very
Yeah.
bold, the colors, everything. And so and so I think it changes over time. But now I'm in the place where I am not confused about my style, but I'm like in between when you are like trying to find a new style that
Mhm.
works for your body. So as we get older as well, your body changes, and so you start, the things that used to make you feel good, they, changes. The color, your interest in colors changes as well.
Mm.
But I used to not think about that. I used to just be like, oh, I like that on that mannequin, and I just put it on. But
Exactly. What I would do is I'd be like, I love the cut, I love the style,
yeah.
and then I wouldn't think about the color, and then I'd get whichever color I didn't have in my closet.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh.
Mhm.
but then I would wear it and be like, this
Oh
looks
my
terrible on
god.
me. Why? Oh, because of the colors. And that was the hardest thing for me to get was like color theory. Like
Yes.
I YouTubed a few things and was like trying to understand why I couldn't understand what colors looked good on me and I couldn't pick a color
Yes.
specifically. And then when I
Yeah.
went through that, I was like, okay, this is
Yeah.
helping me. And I then made much better decisions. So now, like, if I like something, I know if it's a certain color. I'm like, just no.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
And
interesting.
another thing, well, one more point before
Uh-huh.
I go
Yes.
on, before I forget, that I remembered when you said about change. I think it's normal for our style to change always as we
Mm.
get older, like it won't be the same. But I think there is a space that there are some things that we have that don't change that we will always love, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe we love other things, but we always love the certain set of things.
Yeah.
And that's something if we tap into, we can like keep those pieces around or
Mhm.
like
Mm.
know that that style is like something will never change and then the other things can change based on the need
Oh yeah.
occasion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Absolutely.
good
Yeah.
point.
That's a really good, nice, sweet point. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my uh
Your sense of style.
my sense of style and how it has evolved since I was a child. I think the constant is that I usually would base my style off of some vibe I would get from a character in a movie.
Yes,
Like
that's true.
I for probably about 6 years, because I was a big James Bond, Daniel Craig fan,
Mm.
and my dad kind of introduced me to the character, and he has this very like put together like English, posture, and he wears all these very nice suits, and he's traveling, and there's the whole
Yeah.
allure of the character, but specifically the style.
Mm.
It wasn't until 2005 with Daniel Craig he came out and he had this very kind of like active Bond style. And I know I'm getting into specifics here, but but that was when I was like, I could see myself. And we have
Yeah.
different body types, but even just what he was wearing, I was like, I want to emulate that in my life. And since then, I would find pieces that
Yeah.
I liked on him, and I buy a piece similar, um, and I would just experiment. I would play with it, and I really had never, I never in my life allowed myself to embrace fashion and style in that particular way. You know, and when you're a kid, because like you both had
Yeah,
just
yeah,
said, your
yeah.
style does change, and
Yeah.
you take more risks the older you get a lot of
Yes.
times, or you settle into like the person you want to be and the way you want to look and present
Yeah.
yourself. And like I said, I scavenged a lot of my wardrobe from my brother and my parents. So I you know, I just had fun,
In
but I didn't really
scavenging.
feel good in what I was wearing.
Oh, you had fun in scavenging, but
Yeah,
not.
but yes, but
I
then
don't know if that's a
I don't
form of
know
scavenger.
scavenging, but maybe there was just self consciousness there. But
Yes.
again, the older I get, the more I'm like more conscious about what I wear
Yes.
and how I want to
Yes.
portray myself.
Yeah.
And so maybe a character like James Bond, who is naturally this like confident man, say what you want about it, but you know it spoke to me just like the vibe in the aura. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely something that I tried to emulate. And I still have,
You have some pieces
I
like
have
that.
like 6 or 7 pieces that are
Yeah.
like screen accurate ones. I had to go to like websites of people who do that type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love it. I love that stuff. I really do, like
That's really
jackets and
cool.
stuff.
I
Um,
know.
and yeah, and so just like getting to that point where
Yeah.
you find something. You have to go on a journey sometimes to find
Yeah.
like a lane where you just like you just come to life in terms of what you wear and you know, again, how you present yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
But, I think you still put more thought into what you wanted to emulate than a lot of people do,
Yeah.
or than many people do, because a lot of people just end up like people who aren't particularly interested in clothes end up just emulating trends or just
Mhm.
being like, and that was like the mechanism that got people into the stores, like, oh, this is in now, that's in now, and people
Yeah.
are like, oh, I want to try that, I want to try that.
Mhm.
But I feel like if we encourage people to find their personal style more, that would be less able to be taken advantage of,
Yes.
because they already know, like, a lot of people end up buying a bunch of different styles, not realizing the ones that work. And then when they wear the ones that don't work, they feel confused.
Mhm.
And then they feel like they have nothing to wear. And then prompted like a bunch of like YouTubers to like talk about minimalism and like how to find stuff that's like
And then you get
fits
rid of
your
it.
style. Yeah.
I mean, do you because you love clothing and you know a lot about clothing, is this something like you feel like you're gonna do in the future as a business?
I like to think about it because it's just something I really, really like. And my attention maybe takes up too much of my attention for
Yeah.
it not to be some part of my life.
Yeah.
So, like, I made a friend last year, or like a little over a year ago, and she and I became quite close. And she studied, is it fashion design? Yeah. So that's what she studied. And she went to grad school. And that's why yeah, she went to grad school to study textiles because
Yeah.
that was like something she wasn't very well versed in, or she
Mhm.
wanted to improve her knowledge in basically.
Mhm.
And like from talking to her, I feel like what she does is so cool and amazing, and I'm like, that's just really cool. I don't know if I want to like. I don't know if I'd want to go in that route, but definitely it would be cool to be involved in some
Amen.
aspect. But I have the same thing toward food. Like,
Yes.
I feel like somebody told this to me that they have this dream that one day they'll own a restaurant,
Yeah.
and they just want to come out in the middle of the restaurant and ask all their guests how they're doing and be like the happy restaurant owner that is like the great,
Yes.
uh, who enjoys like serving people and like making people have a good time. So it's kind of
Yes.
like that. Like that would be
Oh,
cool to
Mhm.
have
yes.
something like that.
Thank you so much for joining us, Beige Rage community, for another episode of Community Conversations. We hope you all enjoyed this episode. We hope you all learned something, had fun, like we had just
Yes.
said. And stay with us, stick with
Yes.
us. We'll have more
Yes.
episodes coming out soon on
Yeah.
YouTube, all the podcasting platforms,
Yeah.
and we will see you all in the next episode.
Yes. We hope you guys enjoyed Velena's wisdom and life experiences and all she had to share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.